all. Maragliano here. As an author and writer, I've told many stories before, but never until now about the Brooklyn neighborhood I grew up in the 1970s, Kensington, zip code 11218. Bordered by Borough Park, Midwood, East Flatbush, and Windsor Terrace, it runs through 36th Street from 12th Avenue to 18th Avenue, across Coney Island Avenue to the Greenwood Cemetery site of Fort Hamilton Parkway. And take a walk with me and let me show you what it was like growing up in the 1970s in Kensington, 11218. The 20th century, a farmer by the name of Bill Maselli owned this farm and land on where this part of Kensington stands today. When Bill decided to retire from farming, he sold his land to the city of New York. In just a few short years, these city streets were built, and in honor of the Maselli family, the city named the streets after Bill's 5 children. His daughters Louisa, Clara, Tahima, and Minna, and his son Chester. This is Louisa Street, the block in which I grew up on. On these steps, years before this gate was added on, is where my friends Rocky, Joe, Frankie, and Chiro, and myself would hang out at night. The super of this building was a cranky old man who did not like the idea of us sitting here, so he would often come out and chase us away. That would never stop us because in a matter of minutes, we would just come right back. One day, the cranky super finally figured out a way how to win his battle against us. He began to pour motor oil all over the steps and the 2 ledges. Come down Louisa Street with me and see how we spent our wonder years on the block. This house, owned by my parents, is where I grew up. If these steps could speak, they still couldn't tell you how many times they were hit by a pink Spalding, or as we called it in Brooklyn, a Spalding, during a game of stoop ball. Right here is where our punch bowl court was. Home plate was at this manhole cover, and second base on the one further up before the outfield. We began playing 2-man punch bowl in 1971, where we chose up permanent sides of 4 teams until we stopped in 1973. My teammate was Frankie Musto, who lived in that house directly across from me. Frankie and I became the champs of Louisa Street's Punch Bowl League for 3 consecutive summers. One year, we won 33 straight games. Everyone kept individual stats on the home run that were hit. Frankie and I were once chasing each other for the home run title, with him winning the season's end with 58 to my 53.
That's number 58, Dennis. Way to go, Frankie.
Later on, me and Frankie played other blocks around the whole neighborhood, and we beat everyone in sight. I swear, if there was a Punch Bowl Hall of Fame, me and Frankie be in it. Okay, maybe a Kensington Punch Bowl Hall of Fame. Come and take a walk up the block and let me show you where we played another summer sport. Here on this court is where we play 5-on-5 wiffle ball. This manhole cover was home plate, and any ball hit over the manhole cover in the outfield or in that garden was an automatic home run. Every night in the summer, we would come out after dinner and play a game of wiffle ball for 9 innings. Or, as the summer was coming to an end, until it got dark. Then there was a night that I'll never forget. During a game, I was up at bat and hit a pop-up to once where stood a tree there. If it landed fair, it was a fair ball naturally, so hitting the ball up, I hustled and just flung the bat. Then we were stopped by this thundering crash. I turned around and noticed that the bat had fallen right through that window. Everyone watched in shock as I learned 2 things. One, was that I never realized how far a light plastic wiffle ball bat can travel when flung, and two, how on earth can it go through that thick window like that? Fortunately, we were never allowed to play wiffle ball on Louisa Street ever again.
Nice going, Dennis.
Good. In the late 60s and early 70s, the Beverly Theater was home to the Saturday afternoon matinee for kids. There, you could see a kid's movie or cartoon for 50 cents. The gang and I would go a lot, but after a while, if the movie was boring, rather than just walking out, we'd decide to stay and act like menaces. We would run behind the opening of the back of the screen where everyone in the theater could hear us. The ushers would chase us, but they were too old and too slow to catch us. By the time they got near us, we would run out the side emergency door out into the street. Being that the theater was dark, we never were identified and had no problem returning the following week. A few years later, and somewhat more mature, a bunch of us went to see The Exorcist, which was being shown at the Beverly. I always favored a good scary movie, but this one scared the wits out of me.
Man, that movie really bugged me out. How about you?
In the late 1970s, the owners of the theater decided to change the Beverly into a rated X movie theater. The people in the neighborhood did not stand for that, and for days and weeks, they would come here and picket until the owners gave up and turned it back into a family theater it always was. By 1981, like many movie theaters in Brooklyn, the Beverly Theater closed its doors for good. Take a look up here and tell me what you see. Exactly nothing. Right here once stood an elevated subway station where the Culver Line shuttle ran from 9th Avenue to Ditmas Avenue to transfer to the F train that ran to Coney Island. The Culver shuttle made 4 stops. Right on this spot were the steps that went up and down from the station. For a token of 25 cents, Frankie, myself, and others would get on the shuttle, sometimes for an hour, and just go back and forth.
Who needs the rides at Coney Island when we got this?
Until today, I still can't figure out what we saw doing in that. Take a walk with me and let me show you another famed place in Kensington. As a matter of fact, all of Brooklyn. At Brooklyn's famous Buzzarama, home of the slot car racing. Opening its doors in 1965, it is located on Church Avenue, just around the corner from Louisa Street. No matter where you're from in the tri-state area, it seems like everyone has heard of it. In fact, on my honeymoon in Hawaii, I met this guy from New Jersey, and when I told him I was from Brooklyn, he asked, "Oh, have you ever heard of Buzzarama?" I almost fell to the floor. Heard of it? I live right around the corner from it. Come inside and let me share some stories about Kensington's landmark, Buzzarama. This gentleman right here is Mr. Buzz Perri, owner and founder of this wonderful Kensington establishment. Next to him is lovely wife Dolores. Hi, Dolores.
Hi.
How you doing? On these tracks is where kids and many adults spend hours racing their slot cars. A popular hobby in its day, Wednesday nights were the best at Buzzarama. Adult men would race and compete on that back track as Buzz stood on a high podium and called the races on his microphone. To me and many of the boys in Kensington, Buzzarama was our main hangout place. one of the bigger arcade places in Brooklyn as well. I spent lots of quarters a day playing pinball.
Don't worry. Eventually you'll get good at this.
By the time I was 17 and smoking was what we thought was a cool thing, we'd sit in the back, drank hot chocolate, and we'd light up a Marlboro. Buzz put an end to all that as he walked back and told us that we weren't allowed to smoke here until we were 18. When I turned 18, I made sure I let Buzzy know that I was 18 years old. So he had no choice and allowed us to smoke. Then one day, with a look of disgust on his face, he came over to me and says, "Why do you do it anyway?" I had no answer for him. Then he had a proposal for me. He said, "You know what? If you never smoke again, I will walk up to Carvel myself and buy you the biggest banana boat split that you could possibly sink your teeth in." Well, I took him up on it, and until then, never smoked another day in my life. The health fanatic that I am today as well, I owe my health to Mr. Buzz Perri. Come to think of it, I never did get that banana split. Look, PM, he bought this in 1976. That's how old it is. It's frozen. He forgot to give it to me. Okay, thank you, Buzz. Oh boy, this is good, Buzz. That's funny. You're the best. I love you, Buzz. Here we are at Albemarle Playground, connected to PS 230 School, better known in its day as 230 Park. Right behind this once stood a handball court and a basketball court where we would spend endless time playing ball there. During the summer months, the city would fund a program for teenagers, a softball league. On draft day, we would all come out and 4 captains were chosen. I played for the Yankees. Frankie was on my team, and his older brother Angelo was the team captain. At the end of the season, the top 2 teams of the 4 would meet into the World Series. We made the finals that year, and I pitched in Game 7 against the Mets. The Mets had home field that game, and we had a 3-2 lead going into the 9th inning. With 2 men on and 2 outs, I faced the best hitter in the league, a kid by the name of Joey. Very nervously, I lobbed one right over the middle, and he put one over the center field fence for a 3-run homer, and the Mets won the World Series. It was one of the lowest points of my life.
What were you thinking laying one right over the best hitter in the league?
After that championship season, I would play 2 more years. Unfortunately, the city lost its funding for the program, which came to an end. Here we are at Burger King. Here is the parking lot belonging to Burger King. This was once the location of Brooklyn's famous Burger-Rammer. People from all over Brooklyn drove here for a taste of its famous burgers, fries, and thick shakes. Where this parking lot stands today, Burger-Rammer would have an outdoor eating area with cement tables and benches. One could look right through the windows and see the high flames of those burgers being cooked as the heavy smoke would exit its chimney where you could smell them from blocks away. Like so many great places, Burger-Rammer closed its doors in 1971 and was replaced by this Burger King. My buddy Joe landed a job here in the late 70s and would eventually become crew chief. By then, some of us on the block were hanging out there at night while Joe was on duty. In the summer of 1977, Joe got involved with this young lady who was also on the radar of an American thug who went by the last name of Sweeney, who came from East Flatbush. One night, Sweeney dropped by Burger King to threaten Joe. When Joe told him to back off and that she didn't belong to him, Sweeney lunged at Joe and roughed him up a bit. Fortunately, some of the workers helped Joe out and got Sweeney off of him. Sweeney threatened Joe and told him that night he was going to come back with his brothers to finish the job. So when we heard of this, we came down to give Joe a hand. As we waited for the Sweeney brothers to come down, we stood right here on this sidewalk and faced right down there. Then a strange occurrence happened. Out of nowhere, one by one, the lights were going out. It was the blackout of '77. Like many neighborhoods in Brooklyn, a fun time in Kensington were the summer block parties. The so-called mayors of the block would plan this very, very early in the year. Their job was to first apply for the permit, then would have to go house to house and collect money for all expenses that were needed. That included rides for the kids, street clowns, magicians, DJs, and most of all, back in those days, live bands. At nighttime, everyone set up a table in front of their homes and had dinner all together. It was like one big feast all together. Back in the day, it brought people together. People who on a daily basis never really spoke to each other.
Well, nice talking to you. By the way, welcome to the block.
Welcome to the block? You've been living 3 doors down from me for the past 14 years.
This historic Kensington landmark was once the home of the Park Circle roller skating rink. During the skating mania from the 1950s on, this is where the neighborhood came out to skate. As a matter of fact, this is where I learned to skate after taking many hits on the caboose.
You have to start learning how to fall on your sides.
When the skating mania fizzled out a little bit and people stopped coming here from the neighborhood, people all over Brooklyn would prefer going to Roller Palace in Sheep's Bay instead, causing Park Circle roller skating ring to come to an end and going out of business. Right across the street where that luncheonette is, once stood one of those old-fashioned candy stores, you know, with the wooden phone booths, round swivel counter seats, and those light green malted milkshake makers. Just for 25 cents, you could come in and get a Brooklyn famous chocolate or vanilla egg cream. Getting a piece of Bazooka Joe bubblegum and a Superman and Batman comic book was a regular routine for me as a kid. It was something special growing up here. Throughout the years, there have been many changes. Today, all that is left are the memories and the ghosts of Kensington 111.